I'm here as a representative of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a civil liberties organization based in San Francisco that does the kind of traditional civil liberties work, that is to say, upholding the Bill of Rights, but does it on the internet. And so does it in relation to some of the ways that the Bill of Rights can be abridged and can be exercised in the electronic realm. And I'm going to give a talk today about copyright, which is a strange thing for people who are interested in civil rights to be involved with, because until fairly recently there was no nexus between copyright and civil rights. In fact, some of the worst copyright laws that we see being passed, the ones that really abridge our freedom of speech and our freedom of action, are being passed by progressive senators and congressmen who have traditionally been on the bulwark of defending free speech. And that's because the entertainment industry, when it needed lobbying assistance, it needed lobbying assistance to defend its right to express itself. As we like to say sometimes, we know you guys love the First Amendment, we just wish you'd share. There are two kinds of copyright talk. There's the kind of copyright talk you get from a lawyer, and there's the kind of copyright talk you get from everyone else, and in particular from a writer. And in particular, the big difference between the writer version and the lawyer version is the writer version gets a lot shoutier. And that's, with that said, I'm not a lawyer, I am a writer. What I'm about to tell you is my understanding of the law, and in particular my understanding of how the law impacts me as a rights holder, me as an internet citizen, and us as citizens of a democracy, and to tell you a little bit about how EFF is getting involved in it. So copyright in the American conception is distinct from all other kinds of copyright. It's probably one of the things that this country gets right best is copyright. Most places in the world there's an idea of something called moral rights in copyright. You know, in France, if I sell you a painting and you hang it next to another painting, and I think the juxtaposition sullies my artistic integrity, I can have a court enjoin you to change the way you hung the painting, even though it's changed hands because my moral right is inalienable. In America, copyright is set in the Constitution, it's something called the Copyright Clause, as having a purpose, having a policy objective. That objective is to promote the useful arts and sciences. It is nearly unique in the Constitution in having a purpose. Most of the stuff in the Constitution, in particular the Bill of Rights stuff, is pretty much a priori, right? Why do we have the First Amendment? Why is there freedom of speech? Not because we want to encourage a free discourse or this or that or the other. It's because freedom of speech is sort of a priori good. And if you don't get that, you know, you're living in the wrong country. This is pretty much the framers' notion here. But copyright, they sort of felt like they needed to explain why it was there, because it was a weird idea in particular. It was a weird idea that had come to some pretty unfortunate ends in the United Kingdom, where they were separating from. And what they said was we needed to promote the useful arts and sciences by affording authors monopolies of limited times, and eventually that was interpreted as limited scope as well, or right at the gate was limited scope, it was clarified later. That allows them to exploit their works to the extent that it will give them the incentive to go on creating works. So, in this conception, we have the idea of copyright belonging to authors, with parts of their rights belonging to the public. There is this notion that you can't create without having a firmament to create from, a kind of raw material to make new stuff out of. And if you gave the author a perfect monopoly over his works, then you would deprive future authors of the ability to reuse some of those pieces and turn them back into new art. And in addition, you'd stifle public discourse. There is this idea that if the author has a perfect monopoly over his work, then he can tell a critic whether or not he can cite the work in criticizing it. We've never really had a regime where we said, well, criticism only comes with the sufferance of the person being criticized. Presumably that would result in lawless criticism. So if some copyright belongs to the public and some copyright belongs to authors, and you give more copyright to authors, as we have been doing in this country for the last century, in particular in the last 40 years, we've given authors 11 new extensions to copyright. It's got to come from somewhere, and it comes from the public. The more copyright you give to authors, the less copyright the public ends up with. And what we've done is we've fundamentally upset some of the balances in copyright, and this is how we get into some of the civil rights fights.